I'm Olivia Charlton. I am going to be talking about my paper, and it's about how haunted houses tend to attract haunted mindsets. And what I mean by a haunted mindset is anybody who is dealing with like a mental disability or an illness such as anxiety or depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer's. All of those can make someone much more susceptible to the powers of a haunted house and the spirits inside. And I think that's what happened with Eleanor here in the Haunting of Hill House novel. It's pretty clear that she has some sort of um, mental disability or illness. It's not really clear what, and it isn't made clear in the Netflix adaptation either exactly what is wrong with her, but it's always hinted at that, Nellie's not all the way there. And in the novel, she grows up taking care of her sick mother, and her mother is not very nice to her, probably puts her down a lot, so her self esteem is very low. And then her mother dies, and she's stuck with her sister, and she probably feels pretty unwanted there because she kind of is. They're not very nice to her either. She's sharing a car, she has no independence, and so she just jumps at any opportunity to leave, and this included going to the Hill House. And on her way there, she's, talking to herself. She's making up these stories in her head, passing houses and picturing herself living there with, all these cats like in a fairy tale land. I have these beautiful stone lions that I found from, I looked for weeks in the shops, and just, and it's sad, really, because she doesn't have a place to call home. And so when she gets to Hill House, at first it is very scary to her. But I think that as she becomes more mentally unhinged, the house gets stronger and stronger and is able to pull her in. And at some point, she just lets herself go. She says, okay, I want to be home. This is home to me. And, at that point, she makes up her mind that she's going to die in that house and she wants it to be her home forever because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. So it makes sense that she would have that reaction over any of the others in the group. And I really loved the Netflix adaptation of the book, and it made all the people in the house, Luke, Theodora, and Eleanor, it made them siblings, and it showed them growing up in Hill House. And Hill House was very similar to how it was portrayed in the novel, and the things that happened to them were very similar to in the novel. And but I think the adaptation more so showed the spirits in the house and who they were and the ghosts a little bit more. And there was one lady in particular who haunted their mother, Olivia, and her name was Poppy, and she had lived in the house before, and she'd had a terminally ill boy. And in the novel, I guess the heart of the house is what they call it, is in the nursery. But in this house, in the adaptation, it is the red room, which they can't get into until the very end. They find that they'd been in there the whole time or something like that. But before it was the red room, it was the nursery. And Poppy, the ghost, her son was in that nursery and he died in there. And so she's always haunting Olivia, who loves her kids more than anything, and her biggest fear would be to lose them or for them to get hurt. And Poppy is the ghost of the house. She knows this, and so she manipulates her, and is probably one of the main reasons Olivia goes so crazy in the house and ends up killing herself, is because the ghosts in the house are able to figure out, what your weaknesses are, and they will play on that. And if you are weak in the mind, then you basically don't have a chance. And that's unfortunately what happened with Eleanor in the book. It happened with their mother in the adaptation, And then it also happened with Eleanor in the adaptation. But what I liked about what they showed with Eleanor killing herself was she was drawn back to the house many years later when she's an adult. And she's gone through a very difficult time. Her husband died, and she's just not coping well. She's depressed. She's just having all these issues with her mind and having old flashbacks, and old demons are coming back from the ones that haunted her when she was a child. So she finds herself going back to the Hill House, and just like in the book, she's dancing around it in her nightgown, and she ends up going up the spiraling staircase, just like in the novel, except she is not stopped this time, and she's lured over the edge with a noose around her neck, unfortunately. And it kind of shows, well, what's different in the adaptation is the reasoning behind her being lured up those steps and eventually pushed over the edge is because she sees her mother, who's a ghost there. And her mother is wanting her to come home and be there with her forever. So she's the one who kind of tells her, you know, you'll be fine, just go over the edge. And then in the book, there's no mother ghost in there making Eleanor do this. So it's more of just Eleanor on her own, and that makes her seem a little bit more crazy. But I think just at that point, she's so soaked up in the house that she doesn't even care anymore, and she just wants to be there. Whereas in the adaptation, Eleanor definitely did have PTSD, depression, all those things. But I think the reason that she did what she did in the house was just because her husband had just died, and so she was going back there just to find any way to feel back at home in a way, because she felt like her husband he helped her so much with her sleep paralysis. I can't say that word very well, but she was experiencing that. That was another thing that she had going on with her mental state of mind. So when he was gone, that's right when, like, basically right after that, she went to the Hill House, and she got soaked into it again because she was very, very weak in the mind. She was upset. She was sad. And seeing her mother there, of course, you know, probably made her want to go home in a sense, because that could be her home forever. And then, so another thing that I thought of that was very similar, I thought, to the adaptation of Hill House was American Horror Stories Season 1, Murder House. And the reason is the houses are very similar in look. They are big, beautiful mansions with dark wood, lots of windows, big staircases, bookshelves, all that you would think of to be in a typical haunted house. And then even the spirits and the ghosts and the things inside were, I found, to be pretty similar in the way that the reason they are there is because something traumatic happened. They themselves also have a mental disability, or, you know, for in American Horror Story, Tate, the main ghost in there, he's a psychopath. He's murdered tons of people. He was a school shooter. He raped Violet's mom. He did a lot of, I mean, he's a terrible dude. And I think that's probably, like, that house was kind of a place for him to be forever. And that house seemed to draw in a lot of people like that, a lot of messed up people. And I think that the reason for this not just in American Horror Story, but in Hill House, the adaptation, and in the novel, is that haunted houses in general are kind of a safe haven for lost souls or damaged souls. So people who are missing, or who are not all the way there mentally, or who are dealing with something very traumatic, or who have monsters in their closet, whatever, when they are in a haunted house, they are so much more susceptible to the draw to just go and die and be there forever. Because I think that's each haunted house, I feel like, has its own, like it has a heart and it has a personality. And I think that the house itself is wanting more and more souls in it because, especially in Murder House, there's a lot of people who have died in there, and there's a lot of people haunting it, and there's a lot of different stories, and there's so much history in these houses that that's what makes them like just a place where people can die and haunt it forever, for as long as they want. And it doesn't matter if they're messed up or damaged or crazy, they're welcome anyways. And I think that's probably why Eleanor was so drawn to the Hill House in both versions, and also in American Horror